Hi everyone, welcome back to English for You, and it is day 2 of our TOEIC article. I'm Kat.
I'm Tiffany.
And today we are talking, well, yesterday we had a meeting where we had some announcements, some of which were good, some of which were not so good. The first one was that Stuart Lancaster left the company and his position is gone. So that means they're now reporting to somebody else.
And it makes it easier for them to work, I guess. They don't have to be so confused and ask who should I report to or who should I give this to and stuff like that. But there was another important point in the meeting. They kind of have, this is kind of good news and bad news. Their business is doing well. They have more international business now, but that means that they have more customer calls. So now their staff kitchen is being turned into a call center. So people can't eat at the cafeteria anymore. They need to go outside to eat or bring their lunch or something.
Yeah, I guess they need to spend their own money, buy their own lunch. I don't know. They might feel kind of bad about that, but we'll see. Maybe they're happy because they get better quality food.
Oh, that's true.
Could be. Anyhow, so today we're actually going to a different sort of way where it's talking about a process that happens when you are in a meeting. So when you go to a meeting, it's not just that everybody talks and then, okay, you're done. You have to actually record what's being said.
Yes.
So this is all about how they do that, it seems like. All right.
We'll see how they do it. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Reading. An official record. Minutes of the meeting. When a business meeting takes place, it's essential to take minutes. These aren't the minutes that measure time. Instead, meeting minutes are a record of what's said. One person is usually given the task of taking minutes. This is usually the boss's secretary. This person will write down the basic details on paper and later type the minutes on a computer. The minutes will then be passed around to the people who spoke at the meeting. They will want to check that their words have been properly represented. Sometimes minute takers don't catch every word, or they might hear something incorrectly. All the participants will likely want to edit the document a little bit. After everyone approves the minutes, the document will be printed out and signed off by a manager. At that point, the minutes become an official record of the meeting. If a colleague asks what happened at the meeting, you can always say, "Let's check the minutes."
Okay, so our article starts off today by saying when a business meeting takes place, it's essential to take minutes. Interesting. So minutes. I wonder what we're talking about with minutes. Yeah, so if we have this word take place, it's just another way to say when something happens, like a business meeting happens or a business meeting occurs. It takes place. It's basically the same meaning. And then if you say it's essential, essential means it's very, very important. It's almost necessary. Not almost necessary. I would say it is necessary. Like if you don't take minutes in a meeting, the meeting is kind of useless. And it's pointless if they don't do this. So it's something it's really important for you to do. It's essential.
Yeah. Or I really think it just depends on also the company as well. If it's a really, really, really big corporation and they have a lot of important stuff, then yes, it's super essential that these minutes are taken down. But if it's a very informal meeting, then I guess it's okay if you don't really do this. But,
yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
If it's just something to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, then I think it's not a big deal. But it depends on the company, like you said.
Definitely. All right, next it says, these aren't the minutes that measure time. Instead, meeting minutes are a record of what's said, okay? A lot of people maybe don't know what minutes are, what they're talking about here. It's not the minutes in a time like, it's 3 minutes and 22 seconds. It means the meeting minutes, okay? And it's a record of who says what and basically what's important that's being said in this meeting. Now we have a vocabulary word measure. Measure means to find the size, length, or the amount of something. And usually you might use a tool like a ruler to measure maybe the length or the width of something. Okay, you can also measure the weight of maybe your own body weight or measure the weight of a suitcase, and you might use like a scale for that. So it really just depends on what you want to measure, and then you choose the right tool in order to measure it. For example, we can say, John needs to measure the size of the wall to make sure the bed fits.
Yeah, that would be an important reason to measure something. But it seems like we're not measuring time with these minutes. It's a record of what's said, like Tiffany just told us. And it's usually, the article says, one person is usually given the task of taking minutes.
And who is this person? Well, of course, the article says this is usually the boss's secretary.
That makes sense.
Right, because a secretary, this word is a noun. A secretary is a person whose job is to help with a lot of administrative things. So that means they have to maybe organize stuff for the company or for the boss. They have to record things down. They need to do a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. And they basically just help their boss. For example, I can say she got a great job working as the secretary for the CEO of Apple.
Wow, that would be a high-pressure job because I think they must have a lot of schedules, a lot of meetings, a lot of agendas, and different things to keep track of. So, yeah, that's why they need a person to do that for them. All right, well, so I guess it makes sense, if you're thinking about it, that a secretary will take minutes at a meeting. And what the article says is this person will write down the basic details on paper and later type the minutes on a computer. Yeah, that makes sense because often it's easier to write things down on paper when you're in the place and then not, make the tappy tap sounds
right.
So you distract everybody. So it's better to do the computer part later.
Yeah, and you probably can organize what you want to say or organize it better for people to read later on. Next in the article it says, the minutes will then be passed around to the people who spoke at the meeting. Oh, that's interesting. When we have meetings or when I've had meetings before, it was just one person taking the meeting minutes. But here, they want to make a new change. They want the minutes to be passed around to the people who will speak or have spoken at the meeting. When you pass something around, it just means you give something to another person in a group. Okay, so for example, your teacher might pass your test papers around or your homework around. Okay, that means the teacher will probably give you a thick copy of the test and you have to give it to the other students in class and something like that.
Yeah, or if there's a bunch of you who want to see one thing, then probably, you're not going to all look at it at once. You might pass it from person to person and hand it off to somebody else. That's also passing it around. But I think this happens after the meeting is already done. So what happens next is they being the speakers, they will want to check that their words have been properly represented. Yeah, I guess that would be true, especially if it's a very formal meeting. You want to make sure that people aren't getting what you said wrong. So this word properly is an adverb that means something is done well enough or it's done correctly. It's from the adjective proper, which means something that's correct or appropriate. So different meanings of what is proper, what's improper, which is not proper, are different for different people. So here they're thinking if their words have been properly represented, it means they're thinking about, did the secretary show or write what I said in a correct way? Did they say it in the right way? Or do I need to kind of correct what they thought I said so it's actually right? So an example of this might be, doing your homework properly and not hurrying through it will help you get better grades. Definitely true.
Yes. All right, so next it says, sometimes minute takers don't catch every word or they might hear something incorrectly. That's true. In a meeting, everyone's quite busy, trying to pay attention, trying to listen, and also the secretary has to listen and write things down. So I guess this is actually a good thing because then the information that you want to share with other people, the message that you want to share is correct and it's true and people know what you want to say.
Right.
And people won't have misunderstandings. So I guess this is a good thing.
Yeah, and it might also be good if, people are talking very quickly or they're talking over each other and the secretary can't catch everything because you can't write as fast as you talk. So yeah, that might also be another good reason to send it around afterward. All right, and what does it say next? What are they going to do with it? All the participants will likely want to edit the document a little bit. Okay, so participants here is kind of talking about the same words as speakers, the people who spoke at the meeting. But it doesn't necessarily have to be people who spoke at the meeting because participant just means a person who is a part of an event or part of a project, and they are someone who does some work for it or shows up for it in some way. Maybe they go and speak at the meeting, or maybe they just go and listen and make sure they understand everything. Even if they're not talking, they're still a participant in the meeting. And here we see this other word, edit. They likely want to edit the document a little bit. If they want to edit something, edit is a verb that means you make changes. And usually those are small ones. So like if you find little mistakes, little problems, or you just want to add something or take something out or give a note or give a suggestion, all of those things can be called editing. It's a little bit similar to this word proofreading, where you give somebody a piece of writing you did and they check it to make sure there are no mistakes. That's proofreading. But editing doesn't necessarily have to be about mistakes. It could just be, I want to add this, I want to take this away. Okay, so an example sentence of that might be, before handing in her essay, Danae edited some of the information to be clearer and more accurate. So it sounds like she made some changes that were not necessarily wrong, but just, it's better this way.
Making it better, making it sound better.
Right. And the final word that we need to look at in this sentence is the word document. So a document is probably something that you guys deal with a lot, and we also deal with a lot here at AMC or English for You. It's a piece of paper, or it could just be, kind of a piece of paper in the computer, and it has official information on it. In the case of this meeting, it'll be, the minutes that have been typed on the computer. That will be the document that they're handling. And when it gets printed off in paper, it's a paper document.
Next in the article, it says, after everyone approves the minutes, the document will be printed out and signed off by a manager. Okay, so they're doing things quite formal here just to make sure that people's messages are being heard the proper way or heard properly. So they have to get an approval, or they have to get everyone to approve. Approve here is our vocabulary word. It's a verb and it means to say something that is good or okay, or to say something that is acceptable, okay? When you approve something, it means you say, okay, that's good, or yes, I accept that. I think it's okay.
I approve.
Yeah, I approve. For example, we can say, we need to let the boss approve of the idea before starting on the project. Okay, and I'm pretty sure when you guys have projects at school, you also need to make sure that the teacher approves, or the teacher says, okay, go ahead, work on this project. So you need to wait for a teacher to approve your project. Same with this sentence here. So after everyone approves this document, they will print it out, and then it needs to be signed off by a manager. When you sign off something, it just means to have a signature for approval of something. Usually, someone in higher management, like your boss or a manager, they will usually sign off something just to say, okay, yes, I approve, or yes, this is fine. And it's just an official way to say, the boss has seen it or the manager has seen it, and it's okay for people to go ahead with this idea or to go ahead with whatever they want to propose.
And thinking of sign off, it makes me think a little bit of sign on, which has a totally different meaning, although it's an opposite sounding word. If you sign on, it means like you say, okay, I'm going to participate in this. I'm going to, be in this meeting. I'm signed on for this meeting. And then the boss signs off, and I guess everybody's done with the meeting. So maybe they're not quite as opposite as they sound. Okay, so let's continue with our article here. We got, at that point, the minutes become an official record of the meeting. Okay, so it sounds like, you have to go through this whole formal process. The secretary takes the minutes, she or he types the minutes. A bunch of people do a bunch of different edits, and they change a lot of things. And then finally, the manager has to say, okay, I approve this. And now it's official. So official here is this adjective that means something has the approval of the people in charge, particularly in a business setting. And it comes from, of course, that word office. And it's not like an office, like a building where you work in. It's like when somebody holds office, and that means they have a position of power. They could be like your boss or your boss's boss even. If you are a CEO of a company, that means you are holding office as a CEO. Or the president also holds office. If they give their approval on something, of course, that makes it official. Official. So, there are many different uses for official. Basically, if your boss has approved it, if the government says it's a law, if this certain group says we do this every time and we all agree on it, it's official. So an example sentence of that might be, the new rules about company dress became official after the CEO announced them in an email.
Next, it says, if a colleague asks what happened at the meeting, you can always say, let's check the minutes, okay? So, if sometimes it's also very difficult to remember all the tiny little details in a meeting, so it's good to have this official record. Now, a colleague is just basically your coworker. This is a person that works with you at your job. So, for example, Kat and I, we are called colleagues or we are called coworkers because we work together at the same company. Okay? If it's someone in school, you don't call them a colleague, you call them your classmate. So colleague only applies to when you have a job or when you're working. It's the person that you work with. We call them coworker or colleague. Okay.
Although I think when you are in university, I think your classmates, if you're working on something very formal together or something that's really big, I think you can call them a colleague as well, especially if you're expecting to go into the same kind of jobs later. Like you say, this is my future colleague. That means maybe you're going to work in the same industry, that sort of thing. And it doesn't even have to be at the same company. If they're working at the same kind of thing, but they're not in your company, they could also be like your colleague in that industry.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, well, it sounds like that's all of the process. We're finally done with this meeting minutes. I think I've never seen such a formal process.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but then again, English for You isn't that big or that formal of a company, so I think we do everything in a more relaxed way.
Yeah.
Maybe meeting minutes will be like more relaxed.
Yeah, because I think at at For You, A+, and at AMC, a lot of our topics are quite fun and interesting. So
that's right.
We don't really need to be that formal with our meetings. But
that's right.
There are some companies like, okay, for example, maybe Apple or whatever, or maybe even Windows or
maybe Samsung, or let me think of a Taiwanese one, Acer, the computer company.
They might be a little bit more formal because they're dealing with their businesses on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
Lots of big money as well.
And you have to wear a suit.
Yes.
All right. So I think, we are at the end of that. And so I think it's time for us to go to our For You chat for the day. Let's do that right now.
Okay.
For You chat.
Okay, so our For You chat for today is kind of an interesting one. Minutes are helpful to people who weren't at the meeting. What other reasons might there be to take minutes?
Well, definitely, I know that in meetings, sometimes I don't pay attention all the time. I'm sorry. Sometimes I kind of accidentally, it's by accident.
Right.
I accidentally maybe just space out or something, so I might miss something. So I think it's good that there's someone around who's paying even more attention than me.
That's right. Yeah. And sometimes, some people's voices are very, very calming.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you feel sleepy or makes it hard to pay attention. And it's not their fault, but it does mean that it can be hard to absorb everything that they're saying. So I think in that case, the meeting minutes are really, really helpful.
Yeah, or even if maybe you might not understand what this person is saying, or like this person just might, maybe the way they speak is just difficult to understand. It's good to have, something written down that you can look again and be like, oh, that's what they meant, or that's what they were trying to say. So I guess That's a good reason to take meeting minutes.
Right. And another thing that I can think of is if it's a complicated topic with a lot of details, you're definitely not going to remember everything for a long time. So if you have something written down about it, then it will make it much easier for you to go back and take a look and see, oh yeah, this answers the question that I would have about it.
Right, you can always go back and double check and stuff like that. So yeah, minutes can be very helpful to, I think, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So next time you guys are doing a group project, you might consider taking meeting minutes and talking out and seeing if people want to edit it. Maybe you can try out this process for yourselves. You can make it work in school as well as in your job. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed our time with you today, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
An official record. Minutes of the meeting. When a business meeting takes place, it's essential to take minutes. These aren't the minutes that measure time. Instead, meeting minutes are a record of what's said. One person is usually given the task of taking minutes. This is usually the boss's secretary. This person will write down the basic details on paper and later type the minutes on a computer. The minutes will then be passed around to the people who spoke at the meeting. They will want to check that their words have been properly represented. Sometimes minute takers don't catch every word, or they might hear something incorrectly. All the participants will likely want to edit the document a little bit. After everyone approves the minutes, the document will be printed out and signed off by a manager. At that point, the minutes become an official record of the meeting. If a colleague asks what happened at the meeting, you can always say, "Let's check the minutes."
Vocabulary Review. Measure. The driver carefully measured the weight of the goods to make sure he could safely load them onto his truck. Secretary. When I entered the office, the boss's secretary stopped typing and asked me to wait for him a while. Properly. The manager trained his employees to make sure they can do their jobs properly. Edit. The boss had to edit his report as it was too long and some parts weren't well written. Approve. Before we can start building this house, we need the customer to approve the plans. Official. The boss made an official rule that everyone must wear a suit from Monday to Thursday.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net